Games 1 and 2. Chargers running back Austin Eckler said he will play in Monday night's game against Dallas at SoFi. Eckler has been out since week 1 with a high ankle sprain. The Chargers are averaging only 2.7 yards per carry in Eckler's absence. The Clippers beat Utah by 5 in a preseason game last night in Seattle. Kawhi Leonard played 20 minutes. He led the Clippers with 16 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
On October 12, 2022, Nuri Martinez resigned from the Los Angeles City Council. This came a few days after the world heard Nuri and other elected members of the council speak disparagingly about black people, indigenous people, and others.
This white guy with this little black kid bouncing off the effing walls on the floor. There's nothing you can
And what participants believed was a private conversation. Racism, colorism, homophobia, and bigotry were exposed like never before. The effort to undermine the political influence of black fellow citizens was specifically targeted by these so-called leaders. Everyday people stormed the doors of City Hall demanding immediate resignations. Even the President of the United States called for resignations. On Thursday, October 12th, 5 to 7 p.m., KBLA Talk 1580 will host a day of dialogue on the anatomy of anti-black racism and bigotry in Los Angeles with an all-star panel of civic leaders. Don't miss this conversation. Thursday, October 12th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an encore performance from 7 to 9 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The sounds of Carlos Simon, our guest in this hour. Let that ride, Miles. A conversation with the Grammy nominee, composer, curator, and activist, who is currently the composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in D.C., of course. Carlos Simon also composes frequently for the National Symphony Orchestra and the Washington National Opera, and I want to hear some more of that. Let it rip, Miles. Carlos Simon, tell me about this this piece, your version. We all know Amazing Grace, and I can think of 4 or 5 reasons right now why we needed to hear that today. But tell me about your take on this classic.
Well, listen, it's such an honor to speak to you. I'm a huge fan. Been following you for a long time. It's a great honor to speak to you, and especially, given my background. I grew up in a Pentecostal Black church in Atlanta. My dad's a preacher. Come from a long line of preachers, Pentecostal preachers. And this is a hymn that I heard, almost every Sunday, and so it made sense for me to include it on my album, to really, just go to my roots. And I've never, try to, it's a huge part of my musical DNA. The Black church in itself. Even though I write classical music and stuff, but I never go away from my musical background and growing up in Black church, and this hymn is dear to my heart.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me, and especially to my mother, who's listening back in Indiana somewhere. So she always appreciates hearing kind things said about her son, as any mother would. So thank you for that. You're right. We have a lot in common here. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and for that matter, still attend a Pentecostal church. So I know of your journey, and my mother is a minister. My mother's married to a minister. So I know again a bit of the journey that you've walked. Tell me a bit, to your point, tell me a bit about, I'm trying to find the right word here, the intersection, as you see it, between the Black church, Pentecostal or otherwise, the intersection musically for you of the Black church and classical music.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because even though I grew up, listening to gospel music, and in fact, that's the only type of music we could listen to in my father's
You and me both. Yes. I would sneak. Let me just say right quick, Carlos. That's all I could listen to as well was gospel music, and on Saturdays, I'm telling on myself now because my parents already know this, because we got in trouble here or there. Every now and then we would get caught. I would sneak to watch Soul Train on Saturdays when my parents were out of the house, just to get some sense of what Black music sounded like outside of the gospel. That all is all that I could hear. I would sneak, and of course at school I got exposed to Parliament and Funkadelic and etc. because of my classmates. But yeah, if I got caught listening to it, I would get a spanking, get a whipping, and I was going to hell. So I couldn't listen to anything outside of gospel music. So I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead and continue. I'm sorry.
No, it's exactly it. I found my way to classical music through movies. Listening to the scores, and Disney movies, and listening to Star Wars, John Williams, and then that led me. I was like, okay, who is writing this music? So I discovered film composers first. And then that led me to the paths of Beethoven and Mozart, and understanding that there's a direct lineage, from those composers to the quote unquote classical composers, and that's where I wanted to go to the source, and understanding that those composers, Beethoven and Bach and Mozart, they were using music of their people,
yes,
using folk tunes, and so that gave me permission to say, hey, I'm going to use music of my people, gospel music and spirituals, and embed it into this classical idiom that we all know, in the concert music. So what you hear, from my lens is the music of Black people in this essence. I
love it. I love how unapologetic about it you are. I've been looking forward to this hour, and I'm glad it's finally here. We are talking in this hour, for the hour, with the composer in residence right now for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. His name is Carlos Simon. I couldn't be more honored to have him on this program. You are listening to Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
Escalade IQ. This the intro to the all-electric Cadillac, perfection like Zoom. And on a full charge, you get 450 miles without the stop. Haiku. This is what I do. Daddy fat intellect since 92. Linked all the way back, panoramic roof. Come with 24-inch rim standard. Ooh, why? Shawty don't kill him. Cadillac diamond in the back, cold chillin'. And when I'm on attack, on the track is no ceiling. Sky's the limit. You hear me? Straight drop, no parachutes. Lay lines like a longitude and latitude. Feel it, beloved. Clearly, we're hustling. Bustin'. trucking. Cadillac, Cadillac, Cadillac.
For more on the Escalade IQ, visit Cadillac.com.
Available late 2024. GM estimate 450-mile range on a full charge based on development testing and/or analytical projection. Consistent with SCHA 1634 revision 2017 MCT. Range subject to change prior to production. Annual rates may vary based on service factors, including ambience temperature, terrain, battery age, and condition loading, and how you use and maintain your vehicle.
Hey, everything okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
Honey. Hey, I'm here for you. Tell me about school today.
When kids can't find the right words, music can help them sound it out. Talk to the kids in your life about their emotional well-being. Find tools and resources at sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal Ventures.
What's up? I'm Danelle Riley, FAMU alumni and creator of the HBCU Culture Shop. I am so proud of my new partnership with Black Beyond Measure and Target. They help me elevate community pride with my HBCU designs and continue to support Black creators and entrepreneurs with Target HBCU challenges, scholarship programs, and campus collaborations. Let's come together this homecoming season and beyond. Shop my brand and discover other Black-owned products at target.com/blackbeyondmeasure.
For all of us, this generation and the next, there is simply no place in our lives for litter. And yet, it's everywhere we look. And unfortunately, it does belong to all of us. So, let's come together and create a litter-free, clean California, once and for all. Remember to properly dispose of your trash and recycling. Secure truckloads with tarps to keep debris from flying out. Clean out your car when you're at a gas station. Take pride in your community by organizing a cleanup event. Or join a cleanup event near you. Zero litter is the goal. Join us at cleanca.com. That's cleanca.com. Let's do it. Together. Brought to you by Caltrans. cleanca.com.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now. Right now. Right now. Right now.
In the arms of your pity, gather up in the arms of your pity, the sick, the depraved, the desperate, the tired, all the scar of our weary city.
Our guest in this hour is Carlos Simon. He is the composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, and frequently writes for the National Symphony Orchestra and the Washington National Opera. He has a new project out, a 10-track album on Decca Classics called Together. I'm listening to that piece, Carlos, as I talk, and I'm a lyricist. I love lyrics, and the words to that piece just jump out at you. It's called Prayer. Tell me about it, please, sir.
Well, I think you'll love it, especially since it was written by Langston Hughes.
Yes.
You know, the great poet, the Harlem Renaissance. And I love Langston Hughes, and I've always wanted to set his words to music, because there's so much music in it already. There's blues, there's spiritual, there's gospel, and everything in it already built in. And so when I read this, this poem, which is a prayer, I was immediately like drawn to it, just because of the essence of it. We've been talking to God, and says, that really gather up those people who the city often neglects, and those who the sick, the deprived, the desperate, hungry. And, going back to my roots, in the black church, that's what the church is for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we all should be doing, is to make sure that we lend a helping hand to those in need.
Yeah. When you suggested earlier, and it just jumped out at me, and I want to ask you to unpack it a bit more, because I love how the ears of artists work. You hear stuff that the rest of us don't hear, and that's why you're an artist and I'm just a talk show host. But when you read Langston Hughes' work, which I've read more times than I can count, and obviously he's one of the greatest ever to put pen to paper. But when you read his words, tell me how you processed that musically. You saw what he had written, but you could actually hear this being set to music. If you could explain that process, like, tell me what that moment is like when you're seeing something written by a guy like Hughes and you say, oh, this would work well to music.
Yeah, well, it's more instinctive than anything. I always try to, of course there's a little bit of analysis that goes into it, but, just reading it, I can hear like the rhythm in the words. Mm-hmm. And then then the music sort of comes from that. I hear the melody, and then the pacing of the chords that align with it. And of course, sometimes it'll rhyme at the end of the phrase, and
mm-hmm.
and that the lines will all sort of have the same amount of syllables and that sort of thing. So there's music, there's a musicality to all those types of idioms. And I'm pretty sure, because he worked also with composers.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with a composer, Margaret Bonds, who worked in the classical idiom too. So, and they worked together very closely.
Yeah. I get the sense, particularly given your church background, which we've referenced a few times already, I get the sense, Carlos, that you believe that how might I put this, that a song can in fact be a sermon.
Oh, absolutely, most definitely. And in fact, even though to much of my father's chagrin, of not taking on the helm of a minister, in the strict sense of being a reverend, a preacher,
mm-hmm.
a bishop, what have you, I do consider myself as a minister.
Yes,
because music is a ministry, and I always tell him, the music is my pulpit, and I'm here to serve the people through music.
Yeah,
so, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
absolutely.
Something else we have in common. You ain't the only one who disappointed your parent. Because my mama has been trying to get me to be a preacher for years. And she keeps telling me the calling is on my life, and I'm like, no. I know that story too well. I don't want to be responsible for getting nobody else's souls into heaven. I'm trying to get myself to heaven. It's gonna take grace, mercy, and something else to get me there. So I ain't tried to be responsible for getting nobody else into heaven. I don't want that much pressure on my life. But to your point, what you do is a ministry, and I want to believe that what I do every day is a ministry. We have our own calling and our vocation, and I think we're doing it to the best of our ability. But it does lead me to ask, and I'll get back to the classical thing and to all the stuff you're working on in your album, etc. in a moment. But I'm thinking now of my friend Quincy Jones, and Q has said to me for years, Carlos, he says, T, there are only two kinds of music: good music and bad music. That's Quincy Jones. Ain't but two kinds of music: good and bad. I wonder how you process that, given again your roots in the Pentecostal church, your work, of course, now with classical music and the composing that you do. Are there only two kinds of music, or is there something more to what your parent and my parent might say about that distinction?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, what is good music? You have to really define that, and I think that I think what Quincy Jones is probably saying, I'm a huge fan too, and I study him,
mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
from in every aspect. But one of the things he also says is that artists and composers have to be true to themselves.
Yes.
And be honest with the music that they're creating, and then in turn, it connects with someone else. And he also says, if I get the goosebumps when I hear a piece of music that I'm working on, that means somebody else is going to get it too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think there's an element of being honest with yourself, that in the hopes that someone else will connect with it, and that's what makes good art or good music to me.
Yeah. What have you held on to, and what will you always hold on to, born of your being birthed, as it were, in the black church?
God.
Yeah,
To be honest with you, and
yeah.
there's no other way around it, So, and the service that we're all here for a reason, and we all have a purpose, and that's sort of my North Star.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and that's true for me as well. You mentioned John Williams earlier, and I'm not name dropping here. I've just been very blessed in my career to talk to pretty much everybody. I've talked to everybody. No, now I'm talking to Carlos Simons. I've talked to everybody, and been able to become friends with many of the people that I've known over the years of my career, and I count John Williams as a friend. We've spent some time together here and there over the years, and to your point, he is one of the most popular. The composer, I should say, of the most popular and recognizable and critically acclaimed film scores in all of cinema's history. As you know, he is Steven Spielberg's muse. Spielberg wouldn't do anything without John Williams being involved. So as a kid growing up, to your earlier point, when you were hearing John Williams on Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jaws and Schindler's List, and again, he's Spielberg's muse. When you were hearing the brilliant work of John Williams, tell me more about what you were hearing that sort of pulled you into this classical lane.
Well, it was what I felt. More importantly, I think that it's like it's making me feel scared. It's making me feel happy, and even especially when I watch E.T., that last scene is just like, oh my God, it makes me feel, I don't know, just safe. It makes me feel like a sense of like, innocence. And in the music, it's like, what is that, that makes people feel a certain way, in conjunction with what's happening on the screen. And I think music has that special ability, that power, if you will, to make people feel something. And I think we have this true gift of creating soundtracks for people's lives, and I can go back to the very moment where I watched E.T. and how I was feeling, and or how I was feeling when I heard Quincy Jones' The Dude, for instance, and it's that thing of creating a soundtrack for people's lives, and that I think no other art form, if you will, has that sort of that gift.
Yeah. I mentioned a few times already, I want to talk about this now, that you are the current composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. That's a big deal, as we say down south. That's high cotton to be the composer in residence at this world-renowned Center for the Performing Arts. We know this, of course, as the place every year where there are some major events that take place. And here you are at this sacred space, if I can put it that way, as composer in residence. What is that like, and what does that mean? Sort of break that down for the audience.
Well, it's a dream job, because this is the nation's cultural center, and it's sort of like a playground for me as a composer, and it gives me an opportunity to experiment and to work on my ideas with the different ensembles. Of course, I've worked with the National Symphony Orchestra and written several pieces for them, and written several operas. But it's a collaboration with these departments, and I work with artists that come through, to come to the Kennedy Center, and more specifically, I've worked with Mo Willems, who is a kids illustrator, and he's sort of the Dr. Seuss of our time. And I created a short opera, for younger audiences based on one of his books. And so we're exposing kids to opera through music and art, so it's not just the I guess the concert music, the orchestra music, the opera, but it's also reaching younger audiences that you would not necessarily think of going to see an opera or a symphony. So it's a dream job, and I'm trying to do my best in making folks feel safe through the music that I write in these spaces that are considered, as you say, sacred.
Yeah. When you see kids, and we're talking about D.C. at the moment, where the Kennedy Center, of course, resides, so there are a whole lot of chocolate kids, a lot of black kids in the nation's capital. It is gentrifying every day, trust and beliefs, not as many black kids as there used to be. But when you see kids of color, our kids, in real time, get exposed to opera, get exposed to symphony, what do you see, Carlos Simon?
Oh, there's hope. There's so much hope there, because it's opera and classical music is traditionally this very elitist art form that can be seen for the rich and those who are privileged. But it should not be that way. It's such a beautiful art form, and I think that it's ripe for audiences to experience other stories other than what we've been hearing or seeing. And this is America, and a huge part of the American culture is Black. You can't talk about American arts without talking about Black arts and Black music. And I think Black music deserves, and not just Black music, but other underprivileged art forms should be a part of that, and the stories into this art form, which we call the classical music space.
Yeah. A personal story here. I recall the very first time that I went to a classical music concert. I was just a kid, and a guy named Cornel West took me to my very first concert. So here I am with Dr. West, and he's taking me to this first classical music concert. It happened to be in the Berkshires.
Tanglewood?
In Tanglewood, that's exactly right. I was at Tanglewood for the very first time. And the program that night was split between Beethoven and Brahms. So it was Beethoven and Brahms. And Brahms led the program, and the back half was Beethoven. And I was mesmerized by the first half with Brahms, but when they got to the second half and they hit that Beethoven, man, I was just blown away. And I still remember it. I laughed about it. They paused at one point, and I started applauding, and everybody looked at me and say, "No, Negro, that ain't how it works at these shows. This ain't Frankie Beverly and Mays. You don't jump up and applause and sing in the middle of it. You wait till the end." So I sort of embarrassed myself that very first time. I haven't done that since, thank God for Jesus. But that first time, I just didn't know any better. I share all that to ask this question, and when we come forward, I want to get your take on it. Since you mentioned Beethoven earlier, is Beethoven the greatest ever? This is your lane. This is what you do. But is Beethoven the greatest ever? I want to get your take on that and a great deal more as you move through this hour in dialogue with Carlos Simon. He is the current composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. He has a new project out, a new album. It's called Together. It's a 10-track album out now on Decca Classics. We'll talk more about that. You're listening to Carlos Simon right now on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on!
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. At least 25 countries around the world are scrambling to track down and safely remove their citizens from Israel after war broke out between Israel and Hamas fighters over the weekend. In addition to over 2,000 combined Israeli and Palestinian deaths and 14 Americans killed, the United Kingdom, Russia, Ukraine, Argentina, Thailand, Nepal, and France are all reporting casualties. New York City Mayor Eric Adams will be meeting with former President Bill Clinton following his migrant trip to Central and South America. Adams, who is black, says Clinton dealt with narcotics coming from Colombia as president, and he wants his feedback on some recent ideas that have been proposed to the mayor regarding the migrant crisis. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
working on the 105 West at Vermont Avenue. Moving off to the right shoulder, you're seeing some slowdown coming away from the 110. In downtown LA, 110 northbound at the 101. Stalled vehicle on that ramp. Traffic is jamming up at Olympic Boulevard. And we've got a wreck working in Azusa, 210 westbound at Vernon Avenue. That is on the shoulder, slowing back at Sunflower Avenue.
Make your next lunch a lunch combo from Buffalo Wild Wings. Choose from wings, street tacos, and more. Head to Buffalo Wild Wings or order online at buffalowildwings.com at participating locations for a limited time, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Price and participation vary by location. Taxes extra. See menu for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Lance Lynn will be the Dodgers starting pitcher tonight in Game 3 against the Arizona Diamondbacks in Phoenix. The Dodgers, facing a must-win situation, are putting their trust in a guy who gave up 44 homers in the regular season, the most in the major leagues. It is very important for Lynn to get off to a good start. The Diamondbacks have scored a combined 9 runs in the first inning in Games 1 and 2. Chargers running back Austin Eckler said he will play in Monday night's game against Dallas at SoFi. Eckler has been out since Week 1 with a high ankle sprain. The Chargers are averaging only 2.7 yards per carry in Eckler's absence. The Clippers beat Utah by 5 in a preseason game last night in Seattle. Kawhi Leonard played 20 minutes. He led the Clippers with 16 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Some people won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
Turning my pain into purpose is pretty much what I have done to start this foundation.
In August 2020, after the death of George Floyd, Bridget Floyd and other family members established the George Floyd Memorial Foundation in support of the Black community.
It's going to take more than just us as a foundation. It's going to take the community, the world, to make a change.
Fight for racial justice for the Black community. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
1 in 4 Americans today are living with a disability. I'm one of them. People with disabilities are extremely talented, resilient problem solvers that have so much to offer. And we've got a trusted ally on our side, an organization we can rely on, Easter Seals. Easter Seals is leading the way to full equity, inclusion, and access to healthcare, employment, and education for people with disabilities, families, and communities. That's my Easter Seals. Make it yours.
Learn more and get involved at easterseals.com.
Anyone can choose to make a difference. You can help people succeed, rebuild after disasters, protect the environment, or feed the hungry. Not only will you make a difference for others, but for yourself. You can earn money for college, learn career skills, and make friendships that last a lifetime. Make a difference. Choose your future. Choose AmeriCorps.
Is your eyesight changing?
I can't read this anymore.
Don't lose hope. People just like you are working every day using Braille, screen magnification, speech technology, and other tools and blindness skills. Your eyesight may have changed, but your goals, They don't have to. We can help. Visit us on the web at blind.org. The National Federation of the Blind. Live the life you want.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Before it was a corner, it was a boundless plain that never considered the square edges of man's myopia. Over time, the edges encroached and brought with them paper and value. Before it was a constitution, it was a handwritten note presented to a native woman as legal tender. She held it to the light, squinted twice, and laughed at the myopic man who tried to pass a counterfeit bill.
Carlos Simon, tell me about this piece. It's called Bread, is it not?
That's correct. Well, this movement is called Bread, but the entire piece is called Breath, with the D in parentheses, with my collaborator and librettist, Mark Bamuti Joseph, who you hear doing the spoken word narration there, along with the Minnesota Orchestra, the Minnesota Chorale, which, you know, and this piece was, they commissioned us to write this piece in memory of George Floyd, the ancestor who you'll know that was murdered in June of 2020, and they asked us to write a piece that would commemorate his memory, and we came together and came up with these movements, you know, the breath, and the breath of a task. And this movement that you hear speaks about breath as, you know, as something. What would you do with one more day? You know, give us this day our daily bread, and the breath of the task. You know, it's like you think about all the things that happened in 2020, where breath was, you know, a very dangerous thing, but it gave us life, and the breath that, you know, that was taken from Floyd and many others, and you know, so this is something we talk about. The most important thing in this piece is the breath of the task, which is the last movement, but the collective duty that we all have. And one of the lines in the piece is, so much work has been done, but who does the work that's still left? So it really is a call to action for those who listen to the piece and to really try to understand, what is my duty in this journey of anti-racism. You know, if racism is a system, then racism also has to be a system, and we all have to be responsible.
Yeah. I once had the honor of asking Ossie Davis years ago, and I was just in New York a few weeks ago for the premiere of his beautiful piece of work called Pearly Victorious. And if you get a chance, I can tell you it's the best thing I've seen in years. Kenny Leon, the director, is Tony nominated. As Tony Award winning. And for all the great work that Kenny has done with Denzel and Felicia Rashad and Audrey McDonald and everybody else, I think this is his best work. So I encourage everybody listening right now, if you can get to New York to see this piece by Ossie Davis, 62 years since it's been on Broadway, Pearly Victorious, I can assure you, money back. I'll give you your money back if you don't like it. Leslie Odom Jr., of course, the amazing Leslie Odom Jr., from Hamilton, stars in this new production of Pearly Victorious. But I raised that because it's Ossie Davis's. It's an ode to Ossie Davis, and just a brilliant piece of work. I once had the chance to ask Ossie Davis how he approached giving the eulogy for Malcolm X. We've all seen the movie Malcolm X, Spike Lee's magnificent piece of work. and we saw Ossie Davis reprise his eulogy at the end of Spike's movie. But I asked him, what do you do when one asks you to eulogize somebody like Malcolm X? Where do you begin? And he gave his response. I ask you, when one comes to you and says, we want you to write a piece in memory of George Floyd, you explained what you did, but where do you begin that process? Like, where do you start when you're being given when you've been given a task that big?
Well, it's really with the people, the folks who were there on the ground, And so one of the things I asked for is Babuti and I, that my collaborators, we need to go to Minnesota, we need to go to the Twin Cities and talk to, the community. We need to talk to the family. We need to talk to those folks who were in those protests in George Floyd Square and saw the city shut down. And we need to go and talk to, the family and as much as we can, and just gather who this man was. Not what CNN was telling us, but who was this man? And just to be, totally immersed into the environment, so that in that way it informs the piece, it informs the music on a very subconscious level. And one of the things, the best compliment that I could have gotten, after the premiere and this past May was, talking to someone came up to me who we had a conversation with in the very early stages. Mm-hmm. He said, "You listened. You listened. Mm-hmm. Thank you." Mm-hmm. And that was the best compliment I could have gotten, because I was afraid, to be honest with you. I almost didn't take on the commission just because I was very frustrated. I was angry, and as we all are. So it's very, just like, I don't know, what do we do here? And I didn't feel like music was going to be a help in that way, to be honest with you. So, but after talking to my collaborator and mentors, he said, I think we can say something different here, that other than focusing on the moment, let's talk about what comes after this, what is our collective duty to make sure that my children don't have to deal with this.
Yeah, well, one thing's for certain, the value, I'm glad you went there, the value in generous listening, the value in charitable listening cannot be understated, or overstated for that matter. So I'm glad you listened, and I'm glad you weren't too scared to take on the assignment, and you acquitted yourself quite nicely. While we're in that vein, let me ask you right quick to tell me more about this 10-track album out now via Decca Classics called Together. We played a few pieces for the audience, but just give me a broader understanding of what the audience is going to hear when they hear the entire project.
Well, during the pandemic, like we all were, we sort of sequestered in our own little silos. And as a composer, I'm usually by myself anyway. So I wanted to, create an album that brought my closest friends in, and we got in the studio and just to create something special. So it was really just an opposite of what I was feeling, and as a composer, and of course, what I went through during the pandemic. Just the idea of creating something with my closest friends and collaborators. And for those who have, these are people who have the same background as I do, growing up in church, but also, they work in classical music. So we basically went in the studio and say, let's go, let's bring up our roots, let's explore this. And that's why the album is called Together.
It's called Together. It is the new project from the composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. His name is Carlos Simon, and you're listening to him right now on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton. And I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Happy birthday, Metro K-Line. Whether traveling for business or pleasure, it's time you made today a K-Line day. The K-Line can connect you with fun, food, friends, and family from Crenshaw to Inglewood in one safe, clean, comfortable ride. Take the K-Line today and experience the diversity that makes LA such a great place to live, work, and play. Make it a K-Line day. Go Metro. Visit metro.net/K-Line.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Carlos Simon, you mentioned Beethoven earlier in this conversation and what happened when you first got exposed to it. So tell me about your earliest exposure to the music of Beethoven.
Well, you know, I was wanting to find my way and trying to really understand my I guess standing in the long arc of composers and Black composers, and you know, Beethoven was one composer. Of course, he's shrouded in history as the greatest of all time, and studying his music and really understanding like where he fits in the whole arc of art and art music, if you will. Mm-hmm. And you know, this brother, he was really pushing the limits when it comes to orchestral music and rhythm. You just play the Fifth Symphony, and that thinking about what he had to go through and what his ailments as a person, as a human, and being deaf, but yet he still created something that was very special, and we're still celebrating him 250 years today. And you asked me if he's the greatest. Of course, yeah, he's the greatest in the context that he really pushed the envelope, and for that I aspire. Because one of the things that I will say about him is that he relinquished to fate. He always talked about fate in his journals, and thinking about how his legacy would be passed down, in his private correspondence. And he basically, it's like I release my expectations of what my life should be, what my music is, and this was in while he was still living. Mm-hmm. And so here we are 250 years a day, we're still playing his music, still talking about him, and his words. So something he must have been on something.
Yeah, let me ask you right quick. Every time I hear this, every time I think about it, it completely blows my mind. Because when you're writing the stuff that Beethoven wrote and the stuff that you write, you're writing it for a whole lot of different instruments, a whole lot of different people in this symphony, in this orchestra, and to do that for one person or for one instrument is mind-boggling to me. But to do that for a whole orchestra is something totally different. But to do that deaf, I have yet to wrap my brain around the fact that Beethoven did this near the end of his life as a deaf man. How do you process that?
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane, to think about it, and I can't honestly wrap my head around it either, because my ears are my most important thing. But what we do have is the inner ear to be able to hear something when music is not present, and that hearing that is most important for a musician.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
No, it is. We will talk about black composers, of which he is one, Carlos Simon, when we come forward in our remaining moments with him. You are listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
Interrogating and unpacking. That's what we do around here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
What's up, party people? It's your favorite MC's favorite rapper, MC Light here. And we're celebrating 50 years of hip-hop, authentically powered by Cadillac. And we're going to take it way back to where it started. It was only fitting that hip-hop began with teenagers at a back-to-school jam in the rec room of a South Bronx apartment complex by an 18-year-old brother. By the way, I'm also sure he had a Cadillac parked outside. He noticed the energy on the dance floor when he switched between two turntables, extending the beats, repeating the breaks, and never losing the rhythms. And that was the birth of hip-hop. And from that moment, it took off.
For more on how Cadillac is celebrating hip-hop's 50th, visit Cadillac.com/audacity.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
The rent is too damn high. KBLA joins you in calling for affordable housing. The LA Tenants Union is a diverse, tenant-led movement fighting for the human right to housing for all. The LA Tenants Union demands safe, affordable housing and union rent control. They organize against landlord harassment, mass evictions, and displacement, and mobilize for the repeal of the Ellis Act and Costa-Hawkins Act. The LA Tenants Union is on a mission to strengthen tenants' political power through education, advocacy, and direct action. To get help with your eviction or other landlord-tenant issues, take action for justice, or become a member, visit latenantsunion.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This season, your coffee orders are getting warmer, and your outfits are getting cozier. The world keeps changing, and so does COVID-19. That's why this season's COVID-19 shots have been updated. They're one of the best ways to help protect yourself against COVID-19. You can get a COVID-19 shot at the same visit as a flu shot if you're due for both, as recommended by the CDC. Talk to your healthcare provider to learn more and schedule at vaccines.gov. And don't forget to get extra cinnamon spice. Sponsored by Pfizer and BioNTech.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Got about 4 minutes left. About 4 minutes left here in conversation with our guest Carlos Simon, who is the current composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Has a new project out, a 10-track album called Together, which I highly recommend. We've played some of it for you in the show to give you a taste of it. In these last few minutes, Carlos, I want to talk about black composers. I was on a plane not long ago and didn't get a chance to see it when it first came out, but I finally saw the film Chevalier. I was watching this movie about this great black composer Chevalier on the plane back to Los Angeles and enjoyed it immensely, learned a great deal, and so that leads me to ask how you would, how might I phrase this, how would you situate black composers, of which you are one, in the long art of what you referred to earlier, the long arc, that is, of art music?
Well, I mean, it's black music. It's just through the lens of this traditional classical music And for a long time, I'll tell you this, I really struggled with my identity as a composer just because at that time I didn't see a whole lot of us doing it, you know. Of course I went to HBCU in Atlanta, and it was just like, you know, that really opened my mind to all these different composers, Black composers, William Grant Still, Margaret Barnes, who I mentioned earlier. And then later I discovered they're actually living Black composers, you know, and so I discovered Bill Banfield, you know, who is a close friend, ended up being a mentor of mine, and, so many others. And of course, you know, that led me to film music, Quincy Jones, and even, you know, contemporaries like mine, Chris Bowers. So I'm really, I'm just still trying to figure it out, you know, because there are a lot more of us out now, composers, Black composers, women and men, who are really doing the work of telling our stories on the concert stage. But it's still an uphill battle, if you will.
Yep. You mentioned your HBCU. You might as well go and shout it out. I let everybody, when they mention it, go and shout it out.
Morehouse College in Atlanta.
Yep. You know the line. You can tell a Morehouse man, you just can't tell him much. So there's another Morehouse man, and so we should not be surprised at his exploits and his accomplishments, given that he matriculated at the same school that one Dr. King went to. His name is Carlos Simon. He's the current composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. His new project out now is called Together. It's a 10-track piece of some pretty amazing work. So Carlos, like, where do you go from here? You've done so much already in your young career. What's next?
Well, I am just trying to get through the rest of the year with all these commissions that I have with the International Symphony, and writing an opera now, brand new opera, and working on that, which will tell a story and set in Afrofuturism. So that's a story that I'm really excited about, and we're working to finish that, and hopefully on the stage sometime soon.
Nope, that comment made me think of the great Octavia Butler, Miss Octavia Butler.
That's it.
Yeah, man, love that. I look forward to that. Once again, the project is called Together. It's out now, 10 tracks, and Carlos Simon continues his work as composer in residence for the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. Carlos Simon, I've enjoyed this immensely, even more than I thought I would. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your witness. Thank you for being on this program, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a true honor.
Likewise. That's our program for today. Back here tomorrow, Lord willing, to do it all over again. Until then, thanks for tuning in to Tavis Smiley. And as always, keep the faith.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments on a South Carolina redistricting issue this week. It's part of a legal battle over the redistricting of South Carolina's 1st Congressional District, which was redrawn following the 2020 census. The new map splits Charleston County voters between the 1st and 6th Congressional Districts. Civil rights groups oppose the new district boundaries, alleging racial gerrymandering. An historic Powerball jackpot is up for grabs tonight at an estimated $1.73 billion. It's the second largest jackpot in U.S. history. The prize has been growing since July 19, when a ticket was sold in California worth just over $1 billion. The drawing takes place just before 11 p.m. That's Eastern Time. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
I'm a bad man. LeBron James' podcast, The Shop Uninterrupted, has scheduled live tapings at 3 HBCU schools. The first one is this Friday at Tennessee State. The other two will be at Hampton on October 27th and North Carolina A&T on November 2nd. LeBron will not be able to attend the events. The staff from his Spring Hill production company, including business partner Maverick Carter, will be on each campus for at least 2 days of festivities. Morgan State University is investing $22 million to build a wall around most of the HBCU campus in Baltimore and increase security measures. The plan is in response to the October 3rd shooting on campus that injured 5 people, 4 of them Morgan State students. The incident prompted Morgan State to cancel their October 7th homecoming football game. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
On October 12, 2022, Nuri Martinez resigned from the Los Angeles City Council. This came a few days after the world heard Nuri and other elected members of the council speak disparagingly about black people, indigenous people, and others.
This white guy with this little black kid bouncing off the effing walls on the floor. There's nothing you can do.
And what participants believed was a private conversation, racism, colorism, homophobia, and bigotry were exposed like never before. The effort to undermine the political influence of black fellow citizens was specifically targeted by these so-called leaders. Everyday people stormed the doors of City Hall demanding immediate resignations. Even the President of the United States called for resignations. On Thursday, October 12th, 5 to 7 p.m., KBLA Talk 1580 will host a day of dialogue on the anatomy of anti-black racism and bigotry in Los Angeles with an all-star panel of civic leaders. Don't miss this conversation. Thursday, October 12th, live from 5 to 7 p.m. with an encore performance from 7 to 9 p.m. only on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Welcome forward now. You're listening to the Millionaires Roundtable. I am your host, Lynn Richardson, here on KBLA Talk 1580, and we are creating millionaires one family at a time, one day at a time, $1 at a time, and one dime at a time, and that means you. It's Wealthy Wednesday here on the Millionaires Roundtable, and the term wealth for me is broad. It means wisdom, expansion, assets, leadership, transformation, and health. I think all too often we focus on the money part of the meaning of wealth, or people have defined wealth to mean money. But if you apply wisdom and you incorporate expansion of your assets, and you are a leader, you learn to transform from the things that are harming you into the things that are helping you, and you focus on your health, your mental, emotional, and physical health, then you have wealth. And those are the elements that position you to get money. Of course, it's always so great to have someone to, talk about these things with. And there's so much happening. I feel like every time we get over one hump, we have to jump over another hump. And so to help me jump today, I have to welcome MC Light, our legend and icon, my business sister and friend. Light, is always so good to have you here on the round table.
Thank you very much. At the round table, the Millionaire Round Table, it is a pleasure to be here with you today. And I know that we're going to address a couple of things. One is Biden, like Biden's new situation that he is about to inflict upon the people if the Republican House allows him to do it, because they will show up and show out. And then, of course, we have...
Did you say inflict? You said he's about to inflict something on the people.
It is painful. Isn't it painful when you have to pay taxes? I know we're going to get into it, but yeah, when you have to pay taxes on money that's not even realized yet, it's it makes you not want to make it. Makes you not want to make the money when you know you got to give it away. But okay, we're going to talk about that, and then we're also, unfortunately, with everything that took place at the Oscars, with those two guys, with Will and Chris Rock, we have sort of put under I don't even want to say radar, we have totally ignored what happened backstage. And that is producer Will Packer led the first all-black production team in Oscars history. And so I want to dig into that and what that means and what he means to the culture. And we've lost John Singleton, we have Spike, and we have a whole lot of newcomers to the